let's talk about some. Let's get into position preview though. We're talking safeties. Like we said, this is a position of. I know you lost Nigel Warrior, and that's a pretty big loss, especially where you consider where he was at the end of the season. That's a big
Hmm.
loss. One of the best players on the team when you're talking about the Kentucky Missouri games, the final few games of the season. So obviously that's a big loss there. But overall, man, you return some great talent and even bring in some freshman talent that you expect to be pretty solid.
I think Jalen McCullough will be a starter along with Trayvon Flowers. McCullough had a big spring game. I don't know if you remember, he had those 2 interceptions
Mm-hmm.
during the spring game. So everybody was like, "Oh man, this dude's legit."
2019.
Yeah, and then started the final 6 games. He was part of that Pro Football Focus all freshman team.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a really good freshman year. Played a lot. So I'll probably bank on him starting, and then
Right.
Trayvon Flowers will probably be the guy behind him. He was starting before he was injured. So 2 seasons he's had 2 season-ending injuries,
Yeah.
and this one was he got the interception at Mississippi State and broke his leg as he got tackled.
Right.
So just kind of freak accidents, very unfortunate. But I feel like the staff likes Trayvon Flowers. He hasn't played a lot of football. I think his senior year was the first season he had ever played football. He was a Kentucky baseball commit. So super athletic kid. I know he works a lot with Oliver Davis down in Atlanta. I think Kamar Wilcoxon actually works there too,
Right.
along with Bryce Dobson. So I think both of those guys will be your starters. Um, I just hope Trayvon Flowers is able to stay healthy because man, that's and it was like I think it was like the 5th or 6th game of the season where he couldn't redshirt.
Yeah.
So he missed like pretty much the whole season. But then behind him, you had Theo Jackson. He actually came in after Trayvon Flowers went out before Jalen McCullough took over. He played well. He plays a lot in the dime package when they have like a lot of DBs on the field. Tyus Fields, you have Brandon Davis, Shine LaBruza. Then the newcomers would be Keyshawn Lawrence, Danico Slaughter, and Tamarian McDonald.
I've seen a lot of people talk about how they're excited for Tyus Fields. I'm curious to see his play. He'll definitely be relied on a lot. Hopefully, those guys are healthy and he's not having to start because he will be a sophomore this year. But I mean, he's going to see the field a lot.
Yeah, he'll actually be a redshirt freshman. You redshirted.
Yeah.
Um,
And then you talked about the newcomers, Keyshawn Lawrence and then Nico Slaughter. Obviously, Keyshawn Lawrence is going to be that guy that's, I mean, there's a chance he could be relied on a lot this year, especially if he's a 5-star, highly rated. If he lives up to expectations, I think he'll be on the field a lot too.
yeah, I like those two. I don't know if Tamarian McDonald ends up being a safety. He's a bigger kid, so maybe he could switch down to linebacker, or maybe like a star role
Yeah.
if they want to change that a little bit. I don't know. I like Danico Slaughter and Keyshawn Lawrence. I think that are two guys that could play multiple positions in that
Mm-hmm.
secondary. And two guys that are Keyshawn, I feel like is just an athletic freak, and Danico Slaughter is one that will hit anybody anywhere at any time.
Yeah, he lives up to his name for sure.
Right,
Um,
100%.
and you talked about that star position. I'm sure we'll talk about him with defensive backs as well. But Shaun Chamber is expected to start there, and he's a guy too. Kind of not as much as Warrior, but he kind of came along too at the end of the 2019. I'm excited for him. He's going to be asked to be a leader on this defense, and I think he can be very impactful in 2020.
Yeah, I just want to see picks, man. I like pick sixes. That's probably the most exciting thing in football is a pick six.
Well, that's what I was about to say for Shaun Shamburger. I want to see him create turnovers. He's going to have the opportunity to create a lot. That star position, you find yourself kind of in on the action quite a bit.
Mhm.
So if Shaun Chamber can create some turnovers, I really like where this defense could be.
Well, and with him, could he move to safety?
Yeah, that's
If
possible.
Balaam Buchanan is a star position, do they move Schamberger back to um, safety and let it be him and Jalen McCullough probably, not Trayvon Flowers. I don't
Uh,
know. It's going to be interesting to see those. I think Jalen McCullough is definitely the starter for sure.
right,
And depending on what Trayvon Flowers is, health wise,
right. Well, you
maybe
talked,
that's some
yeah,
options.
you talked about Balaam Buchanan. I mean, he's gonna. I think they want to find a way to get all this talent on the field. So hopefully you expect Lante Taylor to kind of come back into his role and play alongside Bryce Thompson there. And then you have Kenneth George behind him and some other guys. And then obviously Balin. I'd be curious to see if because they want to get the most talented guys on the field. That's something they would like to see. And whether that's Shaun Shamburger, that star, Balin Buchanan, I don't know. I think that's an interesting point that I would be curious to see. Right now, I think I want Shaun Chamber there. I just feel like he played that role really, really well at the end of the season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think with this, I think he did too, especially, coming off blitzes and things like that. It seems like at the end of the season, he kind of figured it out.
Right.
Whereas the end of the season, he was kind of running around with his head cut off a little bit. But, he seemed to figure it out. Mm-hmm. And I think he has a lot of upside there, whereas Balin Buchanan's kind of a safer option. But I feel like the upside's there for Shamburger.
Right. And does it help maybe moving Balin Buchanan there too? I mean, you got Warren Burrell too. I didn't mention him. What happened at the end of the season? Like, where was he at the end of the season, 2020?
I mean, I know Bryce came back, so that was it was when Bryce came back, he was kind of just lost.
Right. But I mean,
at that point, I don't think he played necessarily bad, but he didn't play very well either.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I mean, he was a guy that was relied on a lot early in the season. You mentioned Bryce Thompson wasn't there, and then you had
he was the starter when Bryce was out.
And then you mentioned, then we just talked about how Lante Taylor was kind of on the shit list after the BYU game. I don't know. Jeremy Pruitt is going to rotate a lot of guys at that corner position. There's not that Taylor and Thompson won't see the majority of the time, but it's a lot of move. I mean, think about how often the corners blitz in Jeremy Pruitt's defense. Think about how often the defensive backs blitz. I mean, you can't play a whole game there.
Oh yeah, they'll bring anybody at any time. Yeah. So I think that's what's big with this safety group is who can play better in the run game.
Yeah.
If you can produce in the run game, you can blitz a quarterback and get to them. You're probably going to have a better chance of seeing the field, and that's why I think Keyshawn Lawrence and Danico Slaughter have a good chance of seeing the field early, just because they rotate so many guys.
Right.
At times it seems like they have 11 DBs on the field, whereas
they do
not true, but it seems like it.
Not 11, but that's another thing I was going to say in terms of looking at these safeties and this defensive backs. I mean, you do have if you're not even that second guy, you do have a good chance of getting on the field, especially on third down. Jeremy Pruitt loves those sets with a lot of defensive backs on the field. You're right. It's not 11, but it's a lot of them in there, especially on third down. You're going to see a lot of defensive backs. If you're a defensive back on Jeremy Pruitt's defense, that alone gives you a good chance of being on the field.
Right. I want to see ball hawks. I want to see picks. I want to see hard hits.
I don't think I don't think the hard hitting is going to be lacking in this group. I don't have a lot of questions about that.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, not a lot of targeting, but a lot of hard hits. That's what I want.
Right, absolutely. I'm excited for this safety group, this defensive back group as a whole. I think Jeremy Pruitt's done a good job not only developing but recruiting that talent as well. And then obviously, this is looking way forward, but to 2021, there's going to be some even more, help on the way coming in that class.
Yeah.
I expect a lot out of these safeties. I know that's probably with Nigel Warrior leaving. I know that's probably asking a lot, but I feel like you had the chance there wasn't a ton of pressure on you last year. You had the chance to kind of develop, and I know 2 guys were injured, but I feel like that gives you even more of a reason to be better as a group in 2020.
Yeah, gotta be. Got to be able to develop guys. It took Nigel Warrior kind of 3 years to figure it out and put it all together. So hopefully, with the Jeremy Pruitt, Derek Ainsley defense, you're able to see these guys develop a lot earlier than you did Nigel Warrior.
Yeah, and before we get done talking about, I do want to mention, it's going to help this group a lot if we actually get some pressure on the quarterback, and there's a lot of questions I know surrounding the defensive line, the pass rushers, but if the pass rush is half good this year, I'm confident that these safeties can create a lot of trouble in the secondary.